Ramping up your business? The time is near. You've given it heart. Now get it in gear. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do marketing for Gearhart Law, and I am the founder of Gear Media Studios, a full-service podcast studio.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with entrepreneurs and celebrities who tell their stories about their business journey and also share helpful insights about the successes that they've had. Speaking of intellectual property, it's time for intellectual property news. And today we're going to be talking about intellectual property and artificial intelligence, two of our favorite topics. And
Mark Cuban has just become our best friend.
So tell us about it.
So Mark Cuban has been speaking about this, and what he thinks is that IP, intellectual property, is going to be king in an AI world. He thinks people are going to be hoarding their intellectual property and buying up the best talent and locking it up behind intellectual property.
So there's two pieces there. One is the talent piece, and the other piece is the intellectual property piece. And sometimes when people talk about intellectual property, maybe from more of a business standpoint, they're not necessarily talking about the patents, trademarks, and copyrights, but they're talking about the intellectual capital that the organization has, right? So this is the knowledge that's within the organization. And if you've been following the news lately, I guess Meta has been trying to hire away people from other AI companies. In the article here, it mentions Scale AI's CEO, Alexander Wang, offering them a $100 million signing bonus to jump ship. And just gives you a sense of the value that people are placing on the talent and the knowledge that these pioneers have. So I'd like to turn it over to our panel. Noelle, you've been listening patiently. I know you're very involved in the AI space. What do you think about this trend? Do you think Mark Cuban is right, or do you think he's a little off base?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating. I'm in the software as a service space, and so a lot of what we talk about is moats. So, how are you protecting your business? What's your key differentiator? What's your value proposition? And so on one hand, I think that piece around Scale AI, may be kind of a way to get around some of the M&A regulation of, hey, we can't see too much consolidation. So now we're seeing it at the individual talent level instead of acquiring entire companies. So like that, I think, is probably part of that move. But, said in another way, I think there's pieces of that are very spot on. And, Mark is a very savvy investor and has done very well with a lot of the bets that he's made. I think about it in terms of moats. Brad Feld, who started Techstars, says another quote that I think about all the time, that says, in the gold rush, you don't necessarily want the gold, you want the shovel. So thinking about like the infrastructure of how are you owning the stickiness of the infrastructure around this movement. And so that's a lot of what I think about, is not necessarily, we haven't gone through processes on filing patents, but thinking about how do you create stickiness in your product that's really hard to replicate. So yes, I think, there's pieces around this on, what's your moat, what's something that somebody can't come in and replicate right away. Part of that, I think, is also just the real application. We're talking about OpenAI is a very different company than a company like Illoominus. With Illoominus, we're leveraging AI to solve a very real business problem. And so I think those that really understand the industry challenges and know how to solve those with these tools, I think that in a way, like your real understanding of the problem is a differentiator where, somebody's not going to vibe code your way out of that in the same way as you just really understanding the problem you're solving. Another thing that oh, go ahead, Richard. I was just going to build on that.
No, go ahead. build
Well,
away?
I mean, I think that yes, we're talking about intellectual property on the technology side. We're talking about talent that's building solutions, and the mobility there. Yes, you may have some challenges of like some of the things that you figured out leaking around. But another thing that I've been thinking a lot about and having a lot of these conversations around lately is that I think in this new age with AI and automation, that trust is also a real currency that's not necessarily reflected in that statement. As in, there's going to be a lot more information, there's going to be a lot more quantity of information, but I think folks really trusting on quality information is going to be important. So, those relationships, those referrals, I think that people are going to double down on those things because you're going to realize I can't trust a product demo with a company that's saying that all of these things are ready when they're probably not ready in the market quite yet. I want
Yeah,
to talk with somebody who is actually using the product to tell me, is this thing good? Do you like working with them? I think that that level of trust is going to be really important. So
right.
with that,
Okay,
oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just going to amplify that a little bit because I do think that, you know, AI agents can be a real challenge, and if they get it wrong, I'm sorry. The
Totally.
article we were talking about yesterday, or earlier in the program, mentioned hallucinations as a feature as opposed to a bug. Right. And so
Yeah.
if you're using an AI agent to book a hotel in California and the hotel doesn't exist, that makes the AI agent pretty useless, right? If it
Yeah.
hallucinates a hotel
Yeah.
or something else. And so I think the realness is super important there. And
Yeah.
and it's really to your point. So
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
Kurt, what are your thoughts about all of this stuff?
I think Elizabeth Noelle made some really good points there. With respect to Moat and our business plan and how we propose to engage our markets, I think it's important to note that, at least my observation, AI fits really well in certain places, and I think it doesn't fit so well in other places. And I think it's still pretty new. I think there's definitely some reluctance, probably from the demographic of age, to engage with AI. One of our fundamental core values at Moat is to have, people that can talk to our clients and our customers and not put them through the 1-800 number thing, and not put them through a chat robot as their primary contact. But that's I think that's unique to Moat, and what our products and services are, and who our target customers are. That they're more elderly, and I'm not that young anymore. And when I think about not too long ago, I came to the conclusion, we just don't need satellite TV anymore. We don't watch that much TV, but I guess I need to switch to something else, and I need to cancel what I've got. It probably took an hour to get through all of the rigmarole to get my satellite TV provider to just quit, just let me go. And I think that in my experience, customers don't want to do that. They don't want to fight for what they're trying to accomplish, and they don't want to start with engaging a chat robot on the internet. So again, my take is AI is got some unbelievable applications. When I think of an emergency room in a small rural town, suddenly someone's in there and they're injured, and is there an applicability for AI to help a diagnosis in a life or death situation? I think there is. And Richard, you're an attorney. Not too long ago, when you wanted to do research, you'd go to the bookcase behind you with literally hundreds of books and start combing through them, trying to find applicable case law. Is there a better, easier way to get to the right answer quickly there? AI certainly would seem like it fits there. So
I would say only in the short term. In the long term, I spent a lot of time looking through those books, and I learned a lot of information that was not necessarily related to the topic that I was researching, but
that's true.
that came back to benefit me years
Yeah.
later. So I guess the jury's still out, if you'll pardon the legal pun, but about whether or not it's as beneficial as we think it is. And I just wanted to go back to Noelle. I had one question before we had to move on, but I'm coming back to it. Would you consider hiring talent from another organization in the same way Mark Cuban is, talking about how the AI companies are trying to secure top talent? Would you consider that as a strategy, or do you think you're better off just sort of, building from the ground up?
Yeah, it's not, I think it's what we hire for is very much mindset, very much behaviors. I would not necessarily say our strategy is to go and hire somebody from another company and to think that they're going to bring that type of information to us. I don't agree with that strategy, but I also don't believe that there are other companies that are building a solution and understand the problem that we're solving in the same way. And so that's not necessarily, that's not necessarily the strategy. One thing I just to bring to life, because I know that, these listeners probably like stories quite a bit, but it was interesting with Curt saying, there's some places where AI does need to exist, and there's other places where it doesn't need to exist. We work with HR leaders, and when you think about the core, there's lots of different responsibilities, but the core things being around hiring people and the core things being around paying people. And I think that I've even just in a short amount of time seen very real stories where because of AI and automation, because of those bugs that you all brought up, people were paid the wrong amount. And, actually on the bonuses side, and they were overpaid. And then you think about the risk that that puts on a business of now, how do I go and recoup that? How do I deal with this on a trust and communications front? I had another case where, we were actually implementing a new, really interesting HR solution, and we had a referrals program at a previous employer, and there was this new candidate CRM system. So essentially, like, how do you manage recruits? And it would automate a lot of the communications. And, you think, hey, that's a really easy way to incorporate AI and automation, but, that onboarding experience is key to somebody having a good beginning experience at a company. And I had a woman that I had referred, she'd gone through the entire interview process, had a job, had accepted an offer, and then got an automated note that she didn't get the job. And so this was just like such a faux pas, but just
Wow.
thinking about, hey, it's one thing when I go into chat and I'm typing in and I get a weird answer, and I had that happen just now with like a bio that I was sending to something else. We can kind of get over those kinds of things, but these very real administrative things that can be some of the easiest things to automate, there are very real implications when you hear about those things also going wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Shekar,
So-
your thoughts on Mark Cuban's comments about talent and artificial and Mark Cuban's comments about talents and IP?
Well, I think I agree half of the story and the other half I don't. Intellectual property cuts two ways, right? So there is something called trade secret, and then there's something called intellectual property. It's difference between the two. Okay. So trade secret is what you really want to do, and like you don't want the rest of the world to know that because that's your trade secret. That's the trade you're in. Okay. And intellectual property is something that gives you an exclusive right to use that for a period of time, and then it becomes public. Okay. So when people talk about intellectual property and protecting intellectual property, well, in essence, there's no protection after a period of time. Like what we're really talking about is trade secret. that is not really like, is published anywhere. So patents like are excluded from that kind of thought process. But where it comes to talent, and I agree with Noel and I agree with like Curt on this topic, it is not really like pay $100 million, and like some of that I don't think is even accurately depicted, because some of it is just like media getting created, because the next guy who get poached out of chat gpt, you know they don't want them to have an offer they feel is not $100 million, so they shouldn't walk away. Like it's kind of like creating a defense mechanism. That's why it was actually planted in the media in the first place. Okay, so there's like, even like, I don't even agree with like 100 million packages being sent out and doled out, like that needs to be verified and checked. But what I would definitely say is, look for the heart and look for the intentionality on your team. That's more important. If you can simply buy people for money, they're only designed to be attracted to money. So the next guy who's going to give them more money, they're just going to go there.
Yeah.
So what is your moat? Your moat is the problem you're trying to solve, the mission you're on, and does the team believe in what you're trying to do, and hence they're solely committed. I'll give you the example of my team. My CTO used to make 10 times more than what she's making, and she has a 4.5-year-old kid, and she lives in California, in the Bay Area, paying like a mortgage, but wants to do this. And she left a FANG company. Why? Because the love for the work outweighs the love for the money. And when you do it right with good intentionality, obviously wealth follows, obviously legacy creation follows, obviously mission is accomplished. And that is what I would look for in people.
Mhm.
So just to amplify what you just said, people here, this is Benjamin Mann, who is the co-founder of Anthropic. He said, people here are so mission oriented. He says his team turned down those mega offers because they believe more in the mission than the money. So, after several millions of dollars, how much more do you need? And the mission maybe becomes more important, right?
Yeah. So
Anthropic's
I will
trying to
tell you
change
this,
the
and this is like the fact, and everyone knows. I'm probably like relating the obvious to you guys. When my father died, we just cremated him. He did not take anything with him, but what he left was goodwill, right? And so, like, I'm not saying that don't chase money or wealth and all those things. We all need money to like live a basic life and have like the security for our kids and family and generations beyond and all that stuff. I'm not asking you guys not to pursue that, but that should not be the only pursuit in life.
right.
The pursuit in life is basically like leading a life that has purpose and intentionality. And every human being in this world is capable of that, because God has gifted you guys with that power. Unleash that power.
I agree. I mean, one thing I wanted to say, at Anthropic, they say they're affecting the future of humanity, whereas people at Meta just want to make money. And so that's really what those people are so driven to do, I guess. And what does your future of humanity look like? You could ask anybody, and I get a million different answers, but it's kind of scary.
I'm not sure I want the future of humanity to look like Facebook, but
exactly. Like, it should not be like, or it should not be like, one of those giants. Like, they're all mechanized to where, like, to a place that if they even come out and say we care, people should be really skeptical about it.
Yeah.
I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful discussion, and I think we really are getting to the root of some aspects of artificial intelligence and motivations, and talking about the importance of intentions. I think those are all things that are important and we should keep in mind. And I would also like to add, if you have an idea or invention that you want to protect, contact us at Gearhart Law. We work with entrepreneurs worldwide to help them through the entire process of obtaining patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And you can visit our websites, learnmoreaboutpatents.com or learnmoreabouttrademarks.com for a free consultation, or you can download your free entrepreneur's guide to patents or trademarks. Passage to Profit is a nationally syndicated radio show appearing in 38 markets across the United States. In addition, Passage to Profit has also been recently selected by FeedSpot Podcasters Database as a top 10 entrepreneur interview podcast. Thank you to the P2P team, our producer Noah Fleischman, and our program coordinator Alicia Morrissey, our studio assistant Risikat Busari, and our social media powerhouse Carolina Tabares. Look for our podcast tomorrow anywhere you get your podcasts. Our podcast is ranked in the top 3% globally. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and on our YouTube channel. And remember, while the information on this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without checking with your legal professional first. Gearhart Law is here for your patent, trademark, and copyright needs. You can find us at gearhartlaw.com and contact us for a free consultation. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.